Poppy, baby.
Yo, 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 it's Positive Poppy, baby. And this podcast is powered by the best in the West solid coffee roasters from Bellflower Artesia. If you're feeling low, get that refill when you're in their hood, y'all. Today, I am honored to be sitting with the one and only Marvin James, creative, strategist, fashion designer, and more. I mean, honestly, the list goes on and on with you. Thanks for hopping on with me today, bro.
No doubt, yeah. Glad to be here.
Dude, it's like so many memories, man. Like I really owe a lot of my creative growth to you, to be honest, bro.
I appreciate that. I mean, it was like I feel like early on it was clear that this is like creativity, something that just kind of came naturally to you. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think trying to make allow you to see the potential within that, like from an economic standpoint, from like a career standpoint, it's like was a big thing. And I remember just talking about. I just remember the med school conversations and me being so confused. I was like, you're doing all these other things that are not that you seem to really enjoy doing.
Right? That's real, bro. And then you got me my first ad job.
Yeah,
Shout out. You got that started. You started a whole. You like that's crazy, bro.
it is for better or worse. Got you your first ad job. Um,
Right,
it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing, man. I was
man. So go ahead.
no. I was just that environment is such an interesting like entry point to working as a creative. Um,
Mm.
and it comes with its fair share of like consequences as well, and like starting there as opposed to
Oh,
like
it's so real.
starting in another place. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I feel like for me, starting an advertisement as a creative, like as a paid creative,
Mm-hmm.
it really put me into this whole realization of, oh, I can actually get paid for doing this.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's like, I guess growing up I never thought of, oh, advertisement. I always thought of, I want to be the director, and I thought they're the ones that do the advertisements, you know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
Little did I know there's a whole new world, and like shout out to you. Like that's crazy, bro. I was in process to being a cop because I thought I had no options.
I remember that. Yeah, yeah, that's wild.
Right.
That's
Would have been
so
Officer
wild.
Poppy.
That's so wild. Um, yeah,
It's
the
crazy.
path I think with to pursue creativity is like really unclear. Um, there's not like really I don't know, like there's not a real in the same way with like a, a career as a police officer or a career as a lawyer or whatever the other options are. Like there's a
Yeah.
pretty like defined route that you would take, whereas within sort of the creative economy it's pretty wide open in terms of like
Hmm.
what your options are, how you can like enter, how you can transition within it. There's not really like a lot of it's like structured guidance for that.
Right. That's so real. And like, I feel like being a creative, it can either destroy you or build you.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that's
Absolutely.
what's crazy. It's crazy, bro.
Yeah, it's a challenge for sure. It's very much a challenge. But it's I don't know. It's a worthwhile challenge. I'm finding at least like I'm here for it.
I feel it. So talk to us. What is it exactly that you do? Like you do so many things, and I
Y-
feel like whenever somebody comes up to me and asks me that, I even struggle with that. But
Yeah,
I feel like you found the way to really express yourself, and so just talk to me.
yeah. It's like I don't know. For a while, I was sort of trying to figure out like, is what I do the things I'm paid to do, or the things that I'm like doing when I'm not getting paid, or the things that I do for free. I
Message.
I think it's difficult to kind of distinguish that because people kind of want to know like, yeah, how are you actually making money? Like, how are you ensuring that you have money to eat and money for everything else that your life entails? So I feel like for me, it's been, I think, like I started working in strategy, like brand strategy, creative strategy, at different like agencies, and then kind of went freelance doing that after I left 180 and sort of just went like, let me just explore this without.
Was that hard taking that freelance jump?
It, it was more of a push because I got let go. So it was like,
Mm,
let me like, okay, I got some severance so I can like float for a little bit as I like sort of jump or get pushed out of this window, right?
right, right.
And so it was like, let me just take things in stride. um I wasn't really like planning to go freelance. It was like I got let go. I had a trip planned to Europe. I was
Mm,
like, okay, I'm not about to cancel this trip to Europe because I got
right.
let go. So like, this actually might be a great time to go to Europe. I didn't have money to spend when I was in Europe like that. Like, I couldn't really like, I couldn't do all the things I wanted to do. But like, let
Couldn't
me,
ball out.
yeah, yeah. It's like there's a couple pieces I wanted to cop that I couldn't get. There was a couple, other things I wanted to do that I was like, let me not spend the money to take a quick day trip here or whatever. But
Right.
it worked. And then I came back and I was like, I need to get some money. Like, I need some cash. And it
The
was,
creative dilemma.
yeah, and it was really like fortunate. I don't know. I still don't know how it really happened, but someone that I knew through LMU basically was like, yo, I heard they I got an email from someone saying like, I heard you went freelance from so and so. We got an opening available. Are you able to start like next week? Um, and it
Dang.
was like a really random thing. So it was like, you can't plan for that. Um,
Never.
you can I guess let it be known to people what you do or what you're good at, but it's like those opportunities kind of are I don't know, they just happen when they're meant to happen.
Yeah.
So it was that like was my introduction to freelance. Um, it was a real brief project, so I got, and it was like I needed to figure out also like how much do I need to be making as a freelancer. That was a big part of it.
Right. Because that gets stressful, especially if you've never done it before.
For
You
sure.
know, recruiters really be trying to get the best price possible, but you got
Yes.
to know you got to know your worth.
Well, I think it's depends on the recruiter. Like, if it's an independent recruiter, like they get paid a portion of what you're making. So they actually want you to get as much money as possible because then they get the most money as possible. But if it's a
Wait, so
recruiter,
they like each check you get paid, they get paid from that check too?
I don't know if it's by check or if it's by like just like your
Like
project rate or like the placement in general. Um,
dang, that's crazy.
so it kind of varies on the scenario. But if it is like I'm a recruiter at this company and we're trying to hire someone for this company, like, yeah, they're gonna try to keep they got a sort of a margin that they can work within, and they're gonna begin at the
Right.
low end of the margin. Um, and it's like it's kind of your job to begin at the high end of the margin. Otherwise, you're gonna get the short end of the stick.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that makes sense.
so it was like I needed to talk to some recruiters to figure out like what do freelance strategists get paid, because I don't know any freelance strategists. Like,
Yeah.
but I knew some recruiters from like my time working at different places. So I was like, I just hit them up. I was like, yo, how much should I be charging for like my time? Is essentially what you're doing. Um,
Right.
and they gave me the right figures, and I told them the high price, and they were like, yeah, cool, let's start on Monday. And I was like, okay, this is like,
Dang.
I'm making more money than I was making when I was working full time. um, Granted, it's a short time frame that this money's coming in. um, so it was just like an interesting uh, kind of figuring out how do I keep this money coming in consistently when these jobs are sort of like 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And so did you find that just basically through networking, each job kept appearing?
Yeah,
Or did you have to really like I guess hop on LinkedIn or Indeed and try and find these, or was it more just like word of mouth gets around?
yeah. I think I I I was like pressed at some point where I was like on LinkedIn trying to find jobs, emailing folks, whatever, whatever, and that never like resulted in me getting jobs. Like, it always sort of happened when I stopped doing that, stopped stressing out, stopped trying to worry and like force the hand,
Mm,
and just really like indulge in my own interest. And like, I feel like I've gotten several jobs because of all the things I was doing outside of like the strategy world or outside of the advertising or like outside of that context
right.
entirely. Like, when I started to really like do things with Meet the Youngs, and
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
now, like that really has resulted in like me getting jobs in other contexts and in other environments where it's like I think most recently now I'm like I've done the strategy thing and I've like been kind of trying to work out of that sort of role
Yeah.
or outside of that sort of like box or constraint of like this is what you do and this is what you don't do.
Hmm.
I feel like now like the most recent like gig that I picked up as a freelancer is like as a community service designer, which is what I've been doing for Meet the Youngs for 3 years unpaid, and now I'm getting
Right.
paid to do that just because it was something I kept doing, and I told them like, yo, this is like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. This is how I can help in this scenario. Um,
That's crazy. Real quick, just for reference, could you tell us what Meet the Youngs is a little bit, real quick?
yeah, so Meet the Youngs is a project that started with the homie Will and with Sonia 3 years ago. It's basically evolved to being like a post-internet community center for young
Mm.
creatives, young artists, young organizers, just supporting them in their experiences and then in their expression as well. So it's kind
I
of come
love
to
it.
life in a variety of ways, but I think at its core, that's really what it's about. So
Mm.
we've done gallery shows, film screenings, panel discussions in Los Angeles, one in New York, one in Amsterdam. Just experimenting with a lot of different like event formats with the intention of like supporting these young creatives. Um,
That's fire, bro.
yeah, it's been a funny journey. I guess that never really it happened through a birthday party. That was the first event. It never really was like we didn't have this birthday party thinking we were gonna try to like we're making a community center. It was like, yo, let's bring all the homies together. And then like just sort of realize like, oh, this is a thing that like I enjoy doing, and I think the thing that's like needed as well. So it was like, yeah, let's continue doing this. Yeah.
Dog, I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that through doing something you're passionate about, it's okay. Well, actually, real quick, I gotta go and have a flashback real quick. Years ago, you put me on the quote, uh, "Financial freedom brings you creative freedom until your creative freedom is your financial freedom." And
Yeah.
to this day, bro, I quote that in almost everything I talk about. I'm like, yo, listen to this. My homie put this on to me.
That's wild.
And and it's amazing because that's what has happened to you in a sense through Meet the Youngs. Like financial freedom gave you the creative freedom to sort of develop that more, and
Mm-hmm.
now that creative freedom you developed is starting to bring you financial freedom. Like that's so dope to see
Mm-hmm.
that happen.
That's wow. I never really connected the dots as to that's what's unfolding, but yeah, 100% spot on. Um,
Like
yeah,
that's beautiful, bro. Like really proud to see that.
thank you, dog. Thank you, dog. That's amazing.
So how has it been with I guess essentially reaching out to get gigs? Like I feel like that's the one thing that creatives struggle with. So maybe you can shed some light or advice on going about that route of finding opportunities, or I guess lack of finding, but more of allowing opportunities to come to you.
Yeah, I think for me it's been focusing more on how do I allow opportunities to come to me, and I feel like it's just like you just got to do whatever it is that you're doing. Like that for me has been sort of the unlock as to like yes I could email folks and like send them my resume or like put together a portfolio and send them that, but it's like if I'm just doing the thing already, like when someone is in need of someone to do this thing, they're going to know to come to me for that. And so I feel like
Mm.
it's been more so putting an emphasis on like okay, how can I yeah, how do I just really indulge in my own interests and like take those things seriously, give them the time, like allow for me indulging those things to like show like, oh, like I can see how you're operating strategically, or I can see how you're like you have design capabilities. Um, it's been I think also another part is maybe like explaining that like sort of doing
Mhm.
the thing and then taking a step back and like presenting that thing as like, yo, this is like, this is the strategic idea for this thing. This is the visual language for this thing that I made, and just kind of allowing that to the work to speak for itself,
Mm.
and then also I guess doing the work of like helping translate this work to other folks who maybe aren't. Um, I think that's the thing within the creative economy in particular is like
Yeah.
folks get accustomed to seeing certain types of things, or like, oh, I need you to make like an ad for me to understand that you know how to make an ad. But it's like
Mm.
that's not really necessary. And also like if you're trying to make an ad, like you're probably not the creative company that I need to be working for anyway, because that's just
Right.
an irrelevant, outdated concept.
Oof.
Um,
Oof.
but like
Oof.
I think it's just more like you need to be like how just translating some of that stuff. So like how does this art direction for this comic strip translate to whatever else that like this company is like interested in doing or looking to hire folks for, or whatever the case may be. Um,
Right. So basically, it's almost being being able to curate yourself.
yeah, yeah, I think it's a part of that for sure.
Dang. There's it's just like there's so much to talk about. Let's just hop into what does your creative process look like?
Hmm. It's something I'm figuring out still. I think it's very research based. And I think that comes from like my time working in strategy, like
Right.
wanting to be quite. It's research based. It's really conceptual as well, where I kind of start, and again, it's kind of reflective as to where I began. But like, I start with a really kind of large, open concept, and then figure out, okay, how do I bring this to life in language and in visuals and in pictures, in a really like straightforward manner. Um,
Yeah.
it's yeah, and I think it's also pretty collaborative. Like I'm still again learning how to do all of these things, but bringing other folks into the process, figuring out how to like give them like freedom to own a thing entirely. Like, okay, I want to, like right now, a thing I'm working on, accuse this maybe as an example, is this thing called haptics, which is like a concept. Haptics in general is just like that's
I
just
love that word
communicating.
haptics. It just feels right. Haptics.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the one thing I really remember from my comp studies degree, which is like communicating through physical touch. Um, and so it's like, okay, I really like this idea of communicating through physical touch. We're in a moment where right now, due to quarantine, we're not encouraged to communicate through physical touch. We're actually quite literally discouraged from doing so.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, I really like I personally like I recognize that like physical touch is like a big part of how I communicate.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's like how can and it's also big I think for community. Like you need that in community and in order to create community.
Hundred
So I'm
percent.
like, okay, I'm thinking about this. I think my creative process also is like identifying problems to solve. Um,
Mm.
and that's a big part of it. So like, okay, I see this quarantine as a problem for community in a lot of ways, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna focus on like physical touch as like an important sort of thing to nurture, or like keep in mind in this time. So it's like,
Mm. So
let
it's basically
me,
looking at what's basically trying to help the community through creative problem solving.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where like the service design as like a discipline, which is something I learned about maybe like a year or two ago, year and a half
Now,
ago.
service design. Talk to me about that real quick. What's that?
Yeah, I'm still learning it honestly, but it's basically like it's um what's a service? Uber's a service.
Hmm.
Um like Instacart, that's a service. Postmates,
Postmates.
right? All these things that we're really reliant on to like help serve our basic needs, our
Yeah.
services. And it's like how the design portion is like taking design thinking and applying it to a service and not like a product, right? So it's like who are all the stakeholders
Interesting.
involved? Who are all the stakeholders involved in Uber? Who all is needed to like create an operating system that would allow it to function? What do the people need? I think it's very much derived in like addressing a problem or addressing a need state of a community or of a population. So like, who is like, okay, people are looking for like short-term employment opportunities, right? So
Mhm.
like that, you have a need state within that, within a group of people who are looking for work. Uber can provide them that job. Do they do a good job at providing or addressing that need? I don't know that they do. But I think service design is kind of built to ask those questions, and
Right.
try to design better solutions for services that like communities, cities, people are in need of. Um,
That's dope. So it's basically like being a like a producer for example.
mhm.
You're figuring out everything that needs to be put together to make this thing happen.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And
like it's
that's dope.
it feels like it's a hybrid between like a producer and a strategist, because it's like also like I need to ask the questions for like I need to figure out who even this audience is, like who are we even trying to
Right.
engage with this service. And then on the other end, it's like how are we gonna actually make this happen and come to life and like meet the needs of these people.
That's
um
so dope. How'd you fall into that, bro? Like what?
I think I'm trying to remember where I first discovered like that this is even a job that people get paid to do. Um, it might have been through like looking at different design agencies and design companies.
Mhm.
Because I think with me kind of getting tired of advertising and realizing that like I actually the optimism that I entered advertising with was like, oh, I can use this as like a vehicle to create social change. Like advertising, commercials, like they have a profound effect on people, oftentimes quite negative. Maybe it can be changed to be more positive. I think the reality that I saw was like, I don't think that I can change this system or change
Right.
how it's operating. It seems to be affecting people in a negative way, maybe by design even.
Mm.
And so it was like, let me explore other sort of like business approaches that leverage strategy. And one of them is like design agencies. And then some of the design agencies, like, right, they'll design products, they design visuals, but some of them also will design services.
Yeah.
And I think it was through sort of looking at into design agencies that I saw like service design. That sounds interesting. Like I'm interested in service. I'm interested
Right.
in design. Like how do those two things work together? Um, and it was just a really interesting like discovery that I was like, okay, how do I like not how do I get into this? Like how does one get a job in service design?
Right.
Um, like what like I don't know where to begin with this. And it was like sort of leveraging some of my experience in strategy and sort of like rearticulating some of that stuff to think about like, oh, there were some projects that I worked on that were like had elements of service design baked into them. Um, and also just like taking it upon myself to figure out, can I design services for like a community or people in my life that at like a small scale, and just use that to prove that like, yo, this is something I know how to do. um,
And
and I
that's where
think using
haptics
that
came.
now is like, yeah, using that now is like leverage for like a job that I got that's like they want to help organizing stuff around community. And so it was like an interesting sort of, I still don't feel like I'm very much not an expert on it, but I'm
Yeah.
learning it, and that's really like all there is to it.
I think that's the beauty of being a creative is that it's a constant growth that happens every single day. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because like the fact that you went from strategist, to other spectrum in a way. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Like, and in between that, there's been so many transitions for you as a creative. I think that's what I love about you most is that you are so like uh what's the word? I guess just open. You're open to ideating.
Yeah, yeah. I very much am. Like, I think it's a kind of accepting that like the more I'm learning, the more I'm like realizing my ignorance and like how much more there is to be learned, and I guess
Mm,
just being okay with that. Like I know early on, someone gave me some advice like just don't be an expert. Like experts get like passed up by curious folks constantly, and so just like
mm.
yeah, just continue to be open to new knowledge.
Wait. Say that. Say that one more time.
Don't-
I think that might be a new thing to add to my Marvin James archive.
this experts getting surpassed by curious people all the time, right? Like if you think you know everything, you stop learning new things, and then folks who feel like they don't know shit like are gonna be looking for knowledge, and
Right.
they're gonna have the knowledge because you stop looking for it. Like it just feels like when I heard this, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I could see why that would happen, and
Right.
that's why I feel like a lot of the folks that I like who are like in industries or like who are established in industries that I'm entering, right? It's like that's okay because like my perspective is such a different one to begin with, just given my life, and
Right.
I think also it's like I don't know their appetite for new knowledge. Like I don't know how much they're seeking new information, as much as I am. Like I think you get comfortable when you feel like you on top and you know everything and
Right.
you winning. Like that's
Right.
cool.
Big
But I
chilling.
think having an attitude or a disposition that's really like curious and like constantly learning, constantly sharing information with other folks, I think that's I found that to be very helpful in my creative process.
I feel that for sure. I feel like who you hang out around really affects you as a creative, especially if you're in the early stages of your creative development.
Mm-hmm.
And even just like for me, being around people like you and Will in my early creative development, like I think that really helped put a lot into perspective. You know what I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
for me?
Absolutely.
And so like
Absolutely.
what advice do you have for those creatives that are trying to, I guess, find their creatives, their find that creative community?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's like start with the people closest to you. Like I don't know, start there, have discourse, like ask questions. I think also just like yeah, seek out information. Like I don't know, tap in with Meet the Youngs.
Hey, meet the
Like
youngs.
there's a lot of creative communities that exist. I think it's to especially now like I think it's easier now than it had like than it was in like when I was in high school, right, to like find this type of thing because it didn't really I don't know, maybe I wasn't looking hard enough as well. Like I
Hmm.
think there's if this is something that you're interested in and like wanting to do, like it's just know it's not going to be easy, and like prepare accordingly,
Right.
and like know it's going to be worth it. Like if it's something you really want to do, like you're gonna do it. At some point, it's like I I saw a quote recently that I really liked, because it
Let me
and
get
I'm
my
gonna
archive ready.
I feel like I'm gonna mess it up, but it was something along the lines of like the desires, the things you want to do that you like that you suppress become the things that cause depression.
Mm.
And so like you kind of really have to do those things that you want to do, otherwise it will have an adverse effect on you at some point in your life. Um,
Dang, that's real. It's
and
almost like a caged bird.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that like for me, a big part of it, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, was like finding other folks who felt like, who maybe felt like a caged bird, and like working with them, like working with you and Will at 180. Like, I wanted to have other folks there who I could relate to because I was in an
Mm.
environment that I didn't find to be relatable to me. So
Right.
it was like maybe I can bring in other people to this who I know are I don't know who I know are seeking more than where they're at, or looking to for more outlets creatively.
Mm.
And I feel like yeah, I always like resonated most of the folks who were like kind of questioning like, oh, is this sort of the best place for my creativity? This sort of like company or this sort of like business model, um, sort of aligning with those folks who are also like, oh, you're frustrated by not having creative community, like so am I. Like, can we be creative community for each other?
Mm.
um, and just like that's enough. And then the two of you, or the three of you, or the four of you, or whatever, like y'all piece up with another two or three or four, and then y'all got a much larger table, to speak to and to resonate with, and just kind of operate accordingly, like move from there.
I feel that. Do you feel like social media has really helped or has hurt that sort of ability?
It's a double edged sword. Like I think
Right.
I personally am really anti Instagram. Like I'm not big on it, but I understand its utility. I think if it's used the right way, it can be helpful.
Yeah.
But I think more often than not, because of how Instagram is designed, it's encouraging the things that it, it's encouraging the wrong things, right? It's like
Right.
it's encouraging like I need to have like um many relationships and all of these followers as opposed to having like really deep ones,
Mm.
which I think is like counterintuitive to like what community requires. So it's like in some ways it can be helpful for like finding stuff and getting information,
Yeah.
right? Like you can search for things quite quickly on Instagram,
100%.
but you I don't think you can cultivate a really deep relationship at the same rate on Instagram. I think a lot of that stuff still has to happen in like in the physical world. Um, yeah.
No, that's 100%. That's actually, I think for me, I was thinking, I guess for me, I always saw social media as like this thing where it helps connect people, which quote unquote it is. But I'm saying like for creatives to help connect. For example, I've met this painter that lives in Lisbon, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and like now we're like Instagram friends, whatever. But hearing you say that, it's like, yeah, sure, that can happen, but
Yeah.
it doesn't build that real connection, that real creative community. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You
Like,
I don't think you can rely solely on it.
no, 100%. But I think a lot of people do, and I feel that's
Mm-hmm.
why a lot of creatives struggle. They're like, why am I still not feeling satisfied? I have 100,000 followers, and or I got so many people hitting me up in my DMs, but yet my art's the same, or I'm not feeling creative. How like that's so crazy how that is.
Yeah, yeah. I think also like the notion of like do I put work on Instagram or does that devalue my work? I think that's an
Ooh,
interesting sort of like struggle for creatives. It's like this thing that comes from such a special place that is
right.
such a like a I don't know, it's such an intuitive thing for someone to put out and then it's like put up against these metrics of like likes and comments and shares, which is not what it like it's not what the work was made for. I
Right.
think some people are also making work for likes, comments and shares, which is a whole other problem. But I
Yeah.
think it's like yeah, a lot of creative works aren't really like shouldn't be evaluated in that way. It doesn't make sense to like measure them on those bases.
No, dude,
And
that's
so
crazy. Like, it's so real. I was just having that exact struggle the other day, where it's like I have all these photos, and I want to post them because I want the world to see them. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
But then it's like looking at some of this, I'm like, these need to be like in a gallery or something. Like, I need to
yeah,
exhibit this. Like, this is like like, bro, oh, it's so real. Like,
it is.
it's a little depressing.
It is. And I think this like I don't know. I feel a way about not being able to gather right now in this time. Like that's not it's not ideal. But I definitely feel like the creatives, art, and a lot of these things are meant to be consumed in I don't know in community, where you can have like discourse about a work. Like it's as much about like seeing the photo as it is about having a conversation about the photo. And it's like
Mm,
you're not having conversations really on Instagram.
mm-mm.
Like
It's
it's
just
not.
like
It just
fire
wasn't built
emoji.
for that. It was just built for a fire emoji. It was built for two taps. It wasn't built for a, a 3 minute exchange between people, like based off of a prompt, right? Like, and so it's just like it becomes a useful vehicle for spreading stuff around, but it's like it's not. I don't think art is just about like spreading stuff around. I feel like it's also
Mm.
very much about like digesting information and like really like marinating on something for a while and like sitting and having a conversation about a thing or
Bro, we need to
whatever
figure this
else.
out. I have so many ideas in my head right now. After this podcast, we're gonna talk real quick.
Absolutely, I'm with it. I'm with it.
But like, everything you're saying, it's so real. Like we need that discussion aspect, and like
Yeah.
I honestly don't know how long this COVID stuff will go for. But I mean, I think even coming out of it, that's something that still needs to be addressed in the world. Like
Yeah.
I feel this stuff, this COVID has allowed us to step back for a little bit and see, I guess, what services need to be redesigned.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. In a lot of ways, it's like it's a such a challenging moment, but I think within it like there's a lot of opportunity to reflect and to question. I think it's, if nothing else, has been like, um, for the folks who've been questioning these institutions or been like acknowledging their their inability to serve people adequately.
Mm,
It's a big case study in like that being the case.
right,
And then I think for folks who weren't questioning them, it's an opportunity to join in that conversation of like, hey, yo, this is not working, and what can we do? What can we make? What can we design that can more adequately just address the needs of people?
right.
Um,
No,
there's
100%.
yeah, there's a lot that's like, uh, yeah, there's a lot that's kind of falling apart, which is like scary, and it's like, it's I think if you're like, I'm fortunate, I'm in a place of relative privilege where I'm like, I'm not worried about where I'm like my next meal, or like
Mm,
I moved back to my parents' house in January, so like I'm not worried about paying rent
right,
in May, which is a blessing. But and I think in acknowledgement of that blessing comes a bit of a responsibility to like consider what can be done for the folks who aren't in that place of relative privilege.
mm,
Um,
that's real. What are you thinking?
it's, for me, it's been like revisiting stuff from Meet the Youngs, like really kind of considering our digital infrastructure, finding ways to like, how can we facilitate more grants to community, to like, I think there's like a lot of institutional stuff that exists, but it's not, there's such a gap between institutional creative services and like local creative communities.
Mm,
Um, so how can like Meet the Youngs kind of operate as a bit of a bridge between the two, to make sure that like folks like the homies are aware of these like $1,000 grants that exist.
right,
Like that's just like on a really practical level, like that needs to happen immediately. I think beyond that, it's like, how can there be digital spaces for folks to share their work that's like more rooted in conversation, it's more
mm,
rooted in discourse than rooted in like a like or an emoji.
right,
I think it's kind of considering that, and I think it's also continuing a lot of the stuff we were doing with, um, contemplating like physical environments, and like trying to secure the funds to get physical environments
right,
to sort of anchor a lot of these projects, a lot of these efforts, to bring creatives together, to have folks know where like there's very few places like, if a homie's coming to LA for the first time and like, yo, where do I tap in with community or whatever, I have like maybe like two or three spots I can really point them to, like
yeah,
any day of the week, pull up here and you'll tap in with some good folks.
right,
Which is a problem. That's a big problem, and it's like there's ways to solve that problem. So I think thinking about how can space be a part of solving that problem, um, how to get people more doors to the creative economy so that they can like make money, because it's like the creative economy is, uh, for better or worse, it's still very much in business right now, while a lot of
yeah,
other things are not.
so
And so,
real.
how can folks kind of have access to that bag, because they deserve to have access to it at a fundamental level? And so, thinking a lot about that, it's like, how can we create more doors, more sort of like pathways to like working as an art director at a startup, or working, as a UX designer at a design company, like whatever it is, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity out there, and the people have the skills, and if they don't, they can be cultivating the skills.
Mhm.
And so I don't know, thinking through a lot of those things has kind of been how I've been spending some of my time in this moment.
Yeah, bro. That 100% makes complete sense. Is that kind of where like it's in scope began to develop, or where does it's in scope?
Hmm.
How long has that been in the process? Is that a COVID?
No, that's actually it predates Meet the Youngs. It predates like advertising.
Whoa,
Like
whoa.
I was like,
Wait, real quick before we get into it's in scope. Have you always been a creative?
I wouldn't say that I've always. I wouldn't say that I've always known I was a creative or always embraced that I was a creative. Absolutely not. I think it like the first time I really like felt like oh I need to make some shit creatively was probably like 2014. Um, like in high school, I was playing sports. I was playing basketball. Like that's creative, 100%, but it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I wasn't thinking about I don't know making clothes or the environment that I was in just wasn't really like for my school wasn't really like encouraging of that.
Word.
Um, I think so much of creativity is like questioning things and like I don't know like putting forward like um, provocative perspectives, and the environment was just like was not about provocative perspectives or questioning things.
Got it.
Um,
Got it.
and so it was like 2014, like just experiencing like I guess the PTSD that comes with a lot of like police violence happening in your community
Mm.
um, was like for me a triggering point to like oh I need to acknowledge like I feel a way and I need to acknowledge this and like something needs to be done in like creating more rhetoric around this conversation and like um, just giving more energy to this and it was like for me that was sort of the origin point of it's in scope was designing some t-shirts designing some hoodies in like when I was an undergrad that I never put out because I was like a bit of a perfectionist and like didn't want them I felt like they were imperfect
Mm.
so I just like I still have them actually they're in my room now
That's amazing.
um but it was like yeah it kind of me deciding to be a creative right whatever that means
Right.
kind of just came from like me needing to acknowledge some shit that I didn't feel like was being acknowledged
Mm.
and me needing to like just put together a point of view on some shit that was like I don't know that I felt like needed to be put together just in order to like I'm in all of these spaces that are not like that are just fine with what's happening and I'm not okay with it
Mm.
so how do I have that conversation in these spaces how do I sort of provoke that sort of dialogue amongst a group of people who are unaffected by it right like
Right.
LMU is a predominantly white school like a lot of like when I got to working again it was like I'm going to work the day the night before I'm watching a homie get killed on Facebook, and then I go to work the next day, and no one has seen this, no one is
Mm.
acknowledging this, and everyone is unaffected by it, and I'm affected by it in a
Right.
really traumatic fashion. So it's like I need to acknowledge this for myself first, and then I also need to acknowledge it for the folks who feel the same way that I do, and then I also need to acknowledge it to the folks who don't like who aren't seeing this at all,
Mm.
to like get them to be aware of what's happening in the world,
Right.
um, and to like create more discourse around it. So I feel like that was kind of the origin for It's in Scope, and it started in 2014, like fall of 2014, when there was so many problems happening, and then it resurfaced in 2016. Like I guess like the urgency in doing that um, after like Philando Castile, like after that incident occurred,
Mhm.
and it's kind of been a thing that again, like me not viewing myself as a creative for so long, it was like I had to unlearn a lot of that. Like I had to just accept the fact that I was one, and like I can make these
Right.
things. I can design these things. Like I can coordinate the visuals for these things, and like do all of that in service of an issue or something that's really like um, something that I think needs to be acknowledged or that needs to be addressed
Mm.
within like popular culture, quote unquote. Um, and so it was like taking on using clothes as kind of a canvas or a medium for those conversations, for those, yeah, to kind of just start those dialogues. And I think bringing film into like bringing video, bringing photography into that as well
Yeah.
has been like it's an ongoing process. Like again, I feel like I started this in 2014, but I'm like kind of just starting it now in this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's developing. It's really developing in an interesting way. And I'm still like, yeah, it's coming together, and I think I'm not waiting as well to like I'm doing it, and in that doing is everything's kind of being revealed.
Mm. I love it, bro. I love it. It sounds like you've had that epiphany where it's as a creative you just got to do shit.
Yeah,
Cuz I feel like
100%.
so many creatives get caught up on trying to be perfect. And
Yeah.
there's a difference between perfection and well planned or prepared, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think a good creative is okay and will create beautiful work when they're prepared. But a great creative will be stopped by trying to be perfect, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's cool to see
Yeah.
you hitting that point where you're creating, bro. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I'm like, yeah, it's a long time coming. Um I'm glad to be in this place now. And like I don't know, yeah, just not waiting, not really allowing imperfections that are inevitable to like get in the way of doing the thing that you want to do.
100%. Like it's
Because it's
podcast,
not,
bro. I don't know what the
yeah,
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'll be honest. I'm just I'm
facts,
talking to great people about life. You know,
facts, yeah,
there's gonna
and it's like, nah, it's like it's important to remember that like most folks who are like in like uh, like the folks who founded America as a country had never founded a country before.
right.
Like they didn't know what they were doing, and there were definitely some ramifications and some problems that arise from that.
Mm, mm,
But I think that there's like we shouldn't wait to do something for fear that we're not experts in it, um, because no, like most people, the people who are sort of dictating what's going on or like that appear to be experts right now, like they don't know what's going on, they don't know what's happening.
mm.
Um, they're figuring it out every day, just like we're figuring it out every day, like whatever it is that we're doing. So like we shouldn't not do the thing that we want to do for feeling insecure about a lack of expertise. Like we got to just do the thing and like be okay with not knowing
Mm.
and acknowledge that like other folks who are doing shit they don't know how to do either. Um, and like yeah, I think we learn as we go. We learn in the doing, and I think that's okay. I think it just like really comes down to like intention as to like why are you doing this thing to begin with.
Amen.
I think if your intention is set in the right place, like everything else can sort of like reveal itself from there. Like you can figure out the skill sets and all of that, but like if your intention is in the right place, if that's pure, like do the thing, yo,
Mm.
and like everything else will kind of work itself out. If the intention is not in the right place, don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it. Get the intention right first, and then pursue it from there. Because I think that's where a lot of things can go really really left is when you're trying to do something for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're trying to do it for the right reasons, then like yeah, pursue that.
100%, bro. And I think that's where a lot of creatives, I think their vision of so I feel a lot most creatives they come into creativity and come into the industry of whatever with the plan of doing just that, doing beautiful work and creating for the right reasons. But I feel like there's something about when you start being paid to do stuff that it can easily switch if you're not cognitive of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel?
One
Do you see
hundred
that happen?
percent. Yeah, I mean, the check will really like that'll get you uh, to compromise on intentions, or it'll really test your intentions. Like, are you really? Do you really feel like how much money does it cost for you to compromise on your intentions? Like, that's really what getting paid for things kind of it comes to at a certain point. It's like, um, yeah, be willing to turn down money to in order to really like double down on the intentions gets
Mm,
tricky, but it's um it's necessary like to kind of, and I think that's why like being so like clear in the intentions is important, like because they will be tested.
right.
Like that's what economics will do. um like it's definitely going to test those things.
That's real.
Yeah, and it'll reveal any type of really holes, or any like I said this, but I really kind of felt this other way. Like
Right.
it's gonna reveal all of that.
100%. 100%. Dude, I just want to ask, what are you doing in order to like, I guess, stay inspired during this period of being locked down?
Yeah, I think it's been a lot of researching. That's one thing I've been doing, at least for the first like I don't know, maybe the first like 3 or 4 weeks was researching,
Mm-hmm.
as well as like revisiting old ideas and just like um, considering them again in this new context. I think the research, because it's like so many things that we're doing today have been done before.
Mm,
So just acknowledging that
right.
and like turning to history and like uncovering those examples. Like there were so many community centers for creatives in the 60s, in the
For
1920s.
real? That's lit.
And it's like I need to acknowledge that like this what I'm trying to do is not new.
Mm,
The world that we're in is very different,
yeah.
100%. So it has to be different to reflect this reality.
Mm-hmm.
But just taking some time to like, yes, learn from the past, learn from folks who've done it already. And then I think also have been um, in the earlier part of the quarantine, like revisiting old ideas and old like concepts. Again, my process is pretty conceptual, so like I'll have an idea for like a design, like a clothing design.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just like inspired by like a few words. And then it'll be like, how do I bring this, how do I visualize this sort of like this insight, or this thing that I read, or this thing that I like came across that like really hit me as like an epiphany.
Mm,
Like how do I then visualize that thought
right.
into something that's like that's wearable. So it's been a time to kind of go back and do some of that work
And
as
so quick
well.
question. So quick question. Do you have like graphic design background, or is everything you're doing just you're figuring it out and creating as you go?
Yeah, creating as I go. I
That's
mean, like I
fire,
took
bro.
some design classes in high school, but like that was such a long time ago. Two, I forgot everything I learned.
Right. And
Um,
like the stuff
and
you're
three,
dropping is not high school level. You're dropping some dope stuff, bro.
I appreciate that, dog. Yeah, it's been learning. I've had to learn because it was like I would try to collaborate with folks and things just wouldn't get done,
Mm,
and it was like, okay, do I just not get shit done, or do I figure out how to do this myself? And I think it's been like I want to collaborate with folks still, but I also don't want to wait, or I don't want to have to do that.
mm,
I think it's like let me. And there's some designs that I have now that I'm like, yo, I cannot like I have a concept for this, but I cannot execute this at all.
right.
So let me put this on the shelf, and let me work on the things I can do, and like build up a bit of a body of work with that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And then at some point, I think there will be folks who will want to collaborate, and I'll be like, cool, I got this thing that I thought about 2 years ago that I couldn't make because I didn't learn how to do it. Can we work on this? Or what will happen is like 2 years from now, my design skills will be proficient
Mm,
enough that I'll be able to revisit this old idea that was too complex before, and I'll have more of a skill set to like make it happen.
right.
Um, so I think that's kind of how I've been approaching the design things. It's like, okay, I have some stuff that's like I can't do this. That's cool. Like let's do what I can do now, work within that constraint, and make it happen. And I think also not being able to design like all types of shit, I guess, kind of help my visual language kind of come to life
Mm,
because it's like it's really built on what I can and can't do. Honestly,
right.
like my shit looks consistent because I can only do so many things. I only got so many moves. And so it's like, oh, this all works together. And it's like, yes, because I only have so many, I can only do so much right now.
Right.
And that's cool.
Dang, bro, that's so dope. I love that, man. I love that. So what's one thing that you wish you could have known when you first started out on this journey of creativity?
I think more knowing that like, uh, I don't know that I was a creative would have
Mm,
been helpful. Just in like sort of embracing stuff earlier. Um, I think you kind of get discouraged from like I don't know, thinking creative looks a certain way or does a certain thing or like has a certain output.
right,
And if it's I'm not doing that or I'm not in that, then like I'm not a creative.
right,
But I think just knowing that yeah, like just knowing that like you think creatively, like that's a job for that.
right,
Like um just having more awareness as to like what a creative looks like, what a creative is, and how a creative can like live, like be economically stable.
mm,
I think those things would have been valuable at an earlier point. I feel fortunate that I discovered it as early as I did. Um, but I think yeah, it's like as in middle school, I should be knowing this. Like in high school, I should be knowing
yeah,
this. Like that should be the case.
man, that's real. So we're gonna wrap up a little bit. Got a couple, easy questions for you.
For sure.
What's your favorite color and why?
Mm, I always really like like a slate blue, it's like a blue gray
Ooh, okay, okay.
type of color. I feel like lately I've been gravitating towards purple a lot, and yellow as well, which has been making a comeback. Really did not like yellow as a kid.
I feel that. Like the
Um,
banana Laffy Taffies.
yeah, the Laffy Taffies are cool,
What? I
but
can't do
like
them.
for whatever reason, like, and I figured out later, like, there's actually like some science behind it. Like, but the color yellow, I remember I was my mom likes to bring this up sometimes, but like I told her like it made me like nauseous as a child,
What?
and I just like I had like a negative reaction to the color yellow. Like I did not want to wear it.
Mm,
Um, and like I forget what I was. I think I was looking at some color theory, and it's like the color yellow has an effect on like young children. I don't know why,
that's
but
crazy.
it does. So I think just because of that, I've like become more like, and I don't feel nauseous when I see yellow today.
Mm,
Um, like I have newfound affinity for the color yellow
right.
as
I love
well.
it. I love it. What's one word to describe yourself and why?
Mm, learning.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I'm just learning. That's
mm,
it. I think learning is important. I think learning is like um, I'm learning and I'm inviting other people to learn with me.
right.
So it's like I don't know. In some element of that, there's some teaching, but I think it's the emphasis is very much on like what can we learn together.
Mm, I love it, bro. I love it. And then we got just the last segment is speed questions. You ready for this?
Okay, I think
You got
so.
like 5 to 10 seconds to answer each one. Sure.
Okay, I feel like I'll be answering questions slow, so we'll see how this goes.
Are you ready? Day or night?
day.
Biggest inspiration.
Intuition.
Say it again.
Intuition.
Ooh. Pizza or tacos? Is
Tacos.
love a choice or a feeling?
And action.
Ooh. Is art dead?
Nah.
Dinner with Picasso or Virgil Abloh?
uh, I say Virgil because we get like we got to talk.
Pea soup or tomato soup?
Maybe pea soup. I don't. Maybe neither. I don't know.
Waffles or French toast? Cats
Waffles.
or dogs?
Mm, maybe cats.
Interesting. In person or over the phone?
What was the
In
question?
person or over the phone?
In person for sure.
Spike Lee or Tyler Perry?
Hmm. I'm gonna say Tyler Perry because I was having the homie just made a great point about Tyler Perry like an hour ago
Ooh.
about like the point was this is the homie Barney. He basically said like he quoted Tyler was talking about how well Tyler Perry said something along the lines of well everyone was complaining about not getting a seat at the Hollywood table. Tyler was in Atlanta making his own studio,
Oof.
so like
Oof.
I fuck with
That
that.
is hard. What's one thing that you take for granted?
Mm. I think like my body, my physical, like I think I need to do more nurturing of the vessel.
Ooh, that's real. That's actually very real. Weed or alcohol?
We
Poppy and Friends podcast or Poppy and Friends podcast?
Papi and Friends podcast.
Hey, my guy. Thank you for hopping on with me today, bro. I
No
always love
doubt.
talking with you, man.
Same, bro. Same. It's always really refreshing.
Man, always good conversations, and I'm excited, bro. As this keeps getting better and better, I got to get you back on again because there's still so much to talk about with you.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have a follow up.
Yes,
You know what I mean? Keep me accountable.
yes.
Make sure I'm doing the shit I say I'm doing.
Right. That because that's the creative community, bro. Oof.
100%.
Man, thank you, bro. Have a good one, dog.
Thank you, bro.
Peace.
Peace.